Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. So glad you take time to listen into the podcast. We appreciate you for listening in every week. And today I'm talking with Elizabeth, also known as Beth Gibbs. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Elizabeth Beth Gibbs. After working for media, higher education, and nonprofit organizations, Beth is free tired and pursuing her passions of writing, teaching, and leading workshops on yoga and self-awareness. She writes for several health and well-being wellness blogs and has published 2 books, a personal growth book called Enlighten Up, Finding Clarity, Contentment, and Resilience in a Complicated World. Wow, who doesn't need that? And the second book is a children's book, and it's called Ogi Bogi, the Elephant Yogi. Her personal blog can be found in the show notes, and you can get all more information about her. Welcome, Beth Gibbs.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
So glad you're here. Now, I'm guessing you prefer Beth over Elizabeth. Is that correct?
Yes. And it's very interesting, because when Facebook first came out, I signed up as Elizabeth Gibbs. And I wrote my first book under Elizabeth Gibbs. And then as I got more technically savvy about what to do online and I Googled myself, I came up as Beth Gibbs, not Elizabeth. So when I wrote my second book and when I did my website, I said, I have to use Beth. And the funny thing about the website is when my web designer, because I would not do that technical stuff myself, I'm a big proponent of when you can't do something, you find the best person who can do it and you hire them because It is worth every penny you pay.
Yes.
And she called me up and she said, there's a little problem. I said, what is that? She said, you don't own your name. Somebody has purchased the domain name for bethgibbs.com.
Really?
I had to buy my name back.
Wow.
Why would anybody do that? I mean, I'm not that famous or anything, but somebody purchased my name and I had to buy it back. And I said, I need my name. So that's what happened.
So after all that, then definitely Beth Gibbs it is.
Yes.
You are Beth Gibbs.
Thank you.
Okay, so now that we have some clarification on your name, tell us more about you and the work you do.
Well, as you mentioned in my little bio intro, I've had 40 years of working for nonprofit organizations. And in terms of my yoga career, I was doing that right along with working full time and earning a salary, because I know a lot of people have this idea when they find their passion, they just quit their job and they go full bore. But growing up as a middle-class Black woman in New England with very strong women in my family, that was not an option because I had always been told my whole life, your responsibility is to get your education, to get a good job and have your own money and be independent no matter what else happens in your life. So when my passion for yoga kind of rose up and I said, oh my goodness, it was, okay, I'm going to keep my day job. And so when I also became a faculty member in my yoga school, integrative yoga therapy, I would have all these young, earnest students say, well, I really want to go home and do this full time. How do I do it? My response to all of them was, keep your day job. And you do this on the side. And I am so glad I did that and followed the advice of the women in my family, my mom, my great aunt, and my mom's first cousin, my second cousin. Those are my 3 wisdom women who guide me. So it was important to me to give that information to those students that I was training as well, because I did not want anybody to go back to their home and fail, especially when my responsibility in the training was to take the complex structure of how to be a yoga therapist, turn it into a methodology, and then make it interesting and simple enough and practical enough so they could take it back home and implement it. That's kind of what happened.
Yeah. And so what was your day job at the time you started doing the yoga on the side?
At my day job at first I was working as, it kind of overlapped several jobs because most of the jobs I've had, I've been the first one in it. They were like new jobs. So I first had a job at a television station. I was the community affairs program director. So I was writing, developing, and just sort of producing and caretaking community programs. There was a program for the Black community, one for the Hispanic community, and one for women. So, and then a line of documentaries. And then from there, I went to the health center and ran a department under the head executive, which was called Institutional Relations. Now, that doesn't tell you a whole lot. And I found out after a few months on the job that it meant whatever he wanted it to mean. So therefore, I was not there very long because one of the things that he had me do was look for scandalous information for the head of HR, who was a Black man, so he could be fired.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, absolutely not. I am not going to do that. So soon after that, they began to put the screws to me. And after one incident where they were going to do a media marketing project, and I said, what you're proposing is not going to work. Here are the reasons why. I have looked at this carefully, given my media background, and I laid out all the cautions they needed to have and gave them some alternative paths that they could take to reach the same goal. They ignored me. They did what they wanted to do. It failed. And then at my employee evaluation, they wanted to put the blame on me and have me sign off. And I said, no. 3 months after that, I was out. I quit and I moved on to my next job, which was opening a conference center at a local university. So our first few weeks was you went to work with the hard hat on, but I had to hire the staff, develop the materials, run the program, work with all the other university departments. So I've had a very varied career, but in the middle of all of that, I found, because I've always had a passion for movement, and it just sort of morphed from dancing to yoga because I needed the stress reduction. I took the training. Next thing I know, it seemed like every time I started something, there seemed to be a path up to a leadership position. So a few months after I took the training, I was asked to teach. And then after that, I was asked to mentor. And then after that, I was asked to run the mentoring program. And then I did that for many, many, many years. Even when I retired about, oh my God, how many years have I'm terrible with years, but I've been retired probably for about 7 or 8 years, retired for about 7 or 8 years. And even in the support groups, my writing group and all this other stuff I do, I join it. Next thing I know, I'm in a leadership position. So, yeah.
When you're good at something, people figure it out quickly.
Yeah, I think they do. And they know I'm reliable. I mean, that's an important quality for anybody who's leading anything, is you must be reliable. You cannot be flaky and say, sure, I'll do that, and then not do it.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
And so through all those jobs you just walked us through, yoga has always been there.
Yes. It started with the media job, and then it just continued, and I would fit it in whenever I could. Fortunately, they were managerial positions, so I would just save up my vacation, and when it was time to go take a training, I'd just be gone for 2 weeks and do the training. And then come home and teach. And I was teaching classes in the evenings. So, yeah. And, there was the families, how we women find ways to fit it all in. Sometimes it's not balanced, but we do our best.
Yes. And yoga has been there all along. So tell us what you really love about yoga. Like, what draws you to it? Why? What's the thing about it that lights you up?
It has probably kept me off a psychiatrist's couch, although I have no problem with therapy, and I have done therapy for myself, but it has kept me from going into my own little stressors and negative, I don't want to say negative, unhelpful core beliefs of I'm not enough, I can't do this, I'll never be accepted, XYZ, blah, 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 blah. And when I practice yoga, I become more calm, more aware of what is going on around me and picking up cues and energy from other people. And I just find it's just much easier to manage myself and my situations and to manage myself in groups when I find myself in groups. And I would say probably the most important thing I've learned, other than the physical postures, is the model for self-awareness, and that's the subject of my book, Enlighten Up, because it's sourced from 3,000-year-old yoga and philosophy tradition in Sanskrit, it's called the koshas. I call it the 5-layer model of self-awareness. And it simply means you have to understand and listen to what's going on in your body. You can use your breath to absolutely change your mood, calm down when you feel stressed, etc. You've got to understand your energy, because that's in that same layer. And then the mind, to understand how the mind and your ability to witness what's going on around you, how they work together. And then that bliss state of, whatever brings you joy. Can be religious, can be spiritual, can be a great hobby, can be just being in nature, whatever it is that connects you to something bigger than yourself. So when you have all of those 5 layers, which to my mind are a little more foundational than just thinking about yourself as a mind-body connection, you've got, instead of 2, you've got 5 areas to explore. And when you do that, you just kind of see what's going on in your life. And even when things are hard, and everybody has times that are hard, you can learn to manage your response instead of a reaction to something, which can be impulsive and unhelpful. You sort of grasp that little pause and say, how am I going to respond? And the example I use in a lot of the workshops I do is, well, and I'm going to be honest, I have, I don't want to call it an addiction, but I have a deep love of chocolate. Okay. So I'll get an impulse, anytime during the day for a piece of chocolate. And I absolutely have a chocolate drawer in my kitchen. My hand will want to go into that drawer. And sometimes, but if I grab that pause between the impulse and the response, I can say, do I really need it now? And if it's after 3 o'clock and I eat chocolate, I'm going to have a little digestive issue. And sometimes that will be enough to say, no, I will wait till tomorrow. And sometimes also that's a conscious choice to make a change. Or I might say, you know what? I'm going to deal with that digestive issue. I'm going to have my chocolate now. So I know I'm ready for the consequences. Or, the other choice that many people have in situations where they can't make any change at all, like say if they're dealing with a terminal illness, then yoga and that 5-layer model of self-awareness can help you find peace of mind, because change will not be possible then.
Yes.
That's really the key for me.
So the pause, the tool that you're just teaching us about is how to pause. Where you do the thing that might not be for your best good.
Correct.
Now, is there any help you can help for people to get to that pause?
The easiest and quickest way is to become very aware of how you're breathing. Because let's say you're in a board meeting and you've just offered a fabulous suggestion that is right, and somebody else says that suggestion, and people will listen to that person, it's usually a man, and you get angry. So you might want to say something, but if you have put the question in your mind, or the solution or the tip in your mind, focus on your breath. You notice how you're breathing. If your breath is up in your chest, you're stressed out and pretty angry. If you manage to take 2 or 3 nice long deep breaths and get that so that your lungs are filled and your belly expands when you breathe in, you can calm yourself a little bit more. And then you can decide, okay, I'm going to address this and I'm going to speak up. I've got my voice, but I'm going to do it in a calm manner. And I'm going to say, excuse me, but I just said this same thing before he said it. So, and then you can address and see what happens and how you're going to respond to it, because either they'll acknowledge it or they won't, but you still have to deal with the consequences.
Yes. So that is a good tip, and it's a tool that you can do right away.
Thank you.
In any situation, just kind of learn to breathe. And
exactly. And you don't need a mat, and you don't need yoga pants. Nothing. All you need is your attention on that little inhale and exhale.
Yes, yes. Well, as you know, my work is about leadership purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And by the name of the podcast, Leadership Purpose. And so when you hear that term, leadership purpose, what comes to your mind?
Two things come to mind. One, I think when you're in a leadership position, you have two responsibilities, even though perhaps the organization or corporation or business you're working for only sees one, which is whatever you're working on, whatever program or product or something that you're working on, they want to be successful. They want the product sold. They want the program successful. That's perhaps the main focus. But there's a second focus or purpose in there for me. And that is to make sure that you are taking into consideration the effect of what you are doing on the people that you are working with. Especially if they report to you. So it's working that. And it's also, what is the effect of what you are doing to the larger society? So it requires some thinking, and that can be really tough if you find yourself in a position where you're asked to do something that does not meet your ethical standards. So that's hard. But I think any leader has to work with those two things, what you're expected to do and what you know is right. Just like that situation I spoke about earlier, where I was asked to get scandalous information about another employee so he could be totally unethical. And fortunately, I was able to say no, because that wasn't fair to anybody.
Right, right. So do you think it's important to have leadership purpose? If so, why or why not?
Oh, absolutely. Because if you don't have it, how can you do either one of those two things? How can you sell a product, create a program, fund a program, create a marketing or promotion campaign, sell insurance? If you don't have a purpose for doing it, you're not going to be able to do it. So that, I think that's why every company, program, or organization has a mission. That's one purpose. And then the second purpose of folks who are in leadership positions under that umbrella of a mission has to make sure it fits in with your personal ethical system. And that probably should be taken into consideration before you take a position or a job. Although sometimes you don't come into that or meet that kind of a situation until you're already in the job. And then it's tougher, but you have, I think, a successful leader or someone who cares about leadership purpose has to take that into consideration.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your insight and wisdom in that way. The official Beth Gibbs. So how can people, if they want to hear more from you, they want to know more about your books and what you're up to, how can they be in touch with you?
Best way is to go to my website, which is www.bethgibbs.com. It's BETHGIBBS.com. And they can read the blog, they can sign up for the newsletter and get 2 tracks of a relaxation tape. They can read my articles. I have a couple of people who do guest posts, so they can read writings from other folks. It's all geared towards self-awareness and personal growth. Yeah. So if someone's looking for instructions on how to do a yoga headstand, they're not going to find it there. I'm focused on the mental and witness level of that 5-layer of self-awareness.
Yes, self-awareness is so key, I think, in every area of our lives, especially these days. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, everyone. So go ahead and be in touch with Beth Gibbs. And if you want to hear more about me and know more about me, you can contact me on my website, robinlowens.com, robinlowens.com, or just send me a note and DM in social media. Pick your favorite social media channel, and you can find me at Robin L. Owens, PhD, Robin L. Owens, PhD, and I'd love to hear from you. Okay, until next time, this is Dr. Robin. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Leadership Purpose with Robin podcast. If you enjoyed it, head on over and rate and subscribe so you never miss an episode. New episodes drop every week, and I can't wait to hang out with you again soon. Meanwhile, This is Robin signing off. See you next time.